And I'm very grateful that I made it through day 1, because what I experienced in day 2 would have never happened had it not been for a successful day 1. So all right, good morning everybody. So we have a little bit of a different video setting today. Obviously I'm not in the office, but it's Sunday morning here, and I'm at my home, and we're gonna check our blood sugar. So today I am starting a 3-day fast, and yes, it means I'm not gonna eat or drink anything for 3 days. So the main reason why I wanted to do this was to focus on how low I can get my blood sugar over the course of 3 days without eating anything. Genetically, I do have genetically high blood sugar. Everybody in my family is a diabetic or was a diabetic, and just naturally overweight, very high blood sugar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys through my first reading so you guys can actually see what I'm reading at, and we'll go from there. All right, so those of you who have never done this before, basically you take your unit, you take your stick, insert, and then the unit will turn on, ready to go. Place the unit right on the end of the table, pull back the poker. Go ahead and try to make sure you get into some blood accumulated in one finger, any finger. I typically use my index finger. Poke it, boom, get the blood pulled up, and then right in. Have something available to wipe your blood off with. 2, 1. You guys saw it before I did. I didn't even look at it yet. 106. All right, so we're at 106 right now. Carbohydrates lately have been pretty high, so I'm actually happy with that. What I've had readings of before is around like 120, 115, 114, 13, 12. So 106 after having, I'd say probably about 300 or so grams of carbohydrates per day over the last week. I'm very happy with. So there it is, 106 for our first reading ever. So I'm going to kind of document some of this, and we'll be coming back with another video when I'm in the office tomorrow, which will be on day 2. And I'm going to do a recap of how everything went on day 1. I'll check in with you guys later. Day 1 of the 72-hour fast. The first day of what eventually turned into a 4-day water fast. Now on day 1, I had started the Saturday night at 10 a.m. So for me, not eating and going to sleep, waking up, here I am, I'm in a position where now my habit would have told me, hey Will, wake up, eat your bowl of oatmeal with blueberries and some protein and enjoy that, And because I was fasting, psychologically I had to be able to tell myself, no, you're not going to do that today because we are fasting. You have made a commitment to yourself and you will follow through with your commitment. Next thing I know, I hear my wife say, we're gonna have to go to Publix before we take our son to Dinosaur World. So on day 1 of my fast, I spent it walking around an amusement park with my son Maximus because it was his 3rd birthday. And he absolutely loves the dinosaurs. So we took him over to Lakeland. He went to Dinosaur World, and I'll roll some of those clips here. So while we're at Dinosaur World, my wife, before we got there, she had went and she had got some chicken tenders from Publix, some popcorn chicken, some of my favorite pop chips, some pickles, all the salty, sweet, all the good stuff. And I'm sitting there and my entire family's eating, and I'm just like, man, I wanted to eat out of habit. Remember that. I wanted to eat out of habit because habitually we are habitual feeders. If a bodybuilder is regimented to eat 4, 5, 6 times per day, he knows, he's looking at his watch, he knows once it strikes 12, I gotta eat my meal, right? So for a bodybuilder like myself who was used to eating, 4 or 5 times per day, I was regimented like clockwork. And stopping that habit was probably the biggest transitional period of the first day, because you've made a commitment. You're no longer just following through with doing what you habitually did. Whether you're, I'm not going to consider food to be like drinking or smoking, But a lot of people have a problem with committing to themselves. And a lot of people have a problem with committing to anything because maybe they don't lack the internal values within themselves to be able to follow through on their word. Because possibly their word doesn't mean as much as it's supposed to mean when they're making a commitment to themselves. So what I noticed over that first day was that food was just a habitual thing. Is that I didn't need to eat. Even though we in the bodybuilding space or the health and fitness industry, we are taught that we have to eat. I didn't eat for 96 hours, and I ultimately, all the way up until hour probably 80, I felt really good. But regardless, I'm getting off of topic. That day, what I found myself feeling was that I had intense cravings that after looking back at it and reflecting on it in the second day, I realized that my intense cravings were coming more from a place of habits. And that the idea of me being hungry was essentially just because I had developed this habit. And then if we could think about this psychologically, so there's a reason why I made those 2 videos before I put out this fasting video series, and those 2 videos that they were about hunger, and I'll link those 2 videos down below. In video 1, you guys noticed that I prioritized discussing the topic of psychological hunger, so what actually causes hunger from a psychological perspective. And then in the second video, it was more about the wore out. You dinosaured out, man. The hypothalamus basically regulating your 24-hour energy balance and letting you know whether or not you have enough calories and you do not have enough calories. And this hunger hormone ghrelin, on that first day, it was just growling at me. It was yelling at me. It's like, Will, you gotta eat. Go eat. Eat the food your family's eating. And I was like, no, I've committed to myself. I'm not gonna eat. And once I was out of that environment, that's another thing, is that your environment really does matter. So if you're around people and they're just stuffing their faces, you're gonna wanna eat more than if you were in solitary, if you were in seclusion and you're just, within yourself and you're reading and, you're utilizing this time as a very spiritual time to just be with yourself. So we leave dinosaur world. I obviously resisted eating anything. And I just drank water all day. I did have 1 cup of coffee first thing in the morning, but I just drank water for the rest of the day. Throughout the day, I drank roughly about 1 gallon, maybe 1.25 gallons of water. And again, I felt fine. Got home later in the evening, watched my family eat dinner, then watched a movie with my kids. And on that first day, and probably every day, and the hardest part for me was that I'm used to eating and having food or enjoying time while having food with my daughter. And looking at that now, I'm not exactly sure if that is it's a good thing. Obviously we need food to be able to nourish our bodies, to make sure that our metabolisms are being fed, so on and so forth. However, having to tell my daughter, like, no honey, I can't eat that with you tonight, and then having it actually negatively impact her like it was the food that was making her happy, when I had interpreted that as, I thought the time that we spend together makes us happy. So then I have a conversation with her and I say, honey, is it, you're okay as you can spend time with daddy. We don't have to eat food together in order to be happy. She said, you're right, Daddy, just hold me. And we cuddled and we fell asleep on the couch together. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, hey, I made it one day, And so this is just going to be the first day and kind of my thoughts. So I realized that I was going into day 2. So overall, my review of the first day was that there were a lot of hunger cravings. There was a lot of both physiological hunger stimulated by the hunger hormone ghrelin. And then there was a lot of psychological hunger too, just because hunger in and of itself is a habitual thing. My psychological position relating to day 1 was that kind of like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this? Will, are you sure you want to do this? Trying to essentially talk myself out of it, kind of. And reflecting back on that, I'm grateful for that because I had to battle those little voices inside of my head to be able to make it through day 1. And I'm very grateful that I made it through day 1 because what I experienced in day 2 would have never happened had it not been for a successful day 1.